Yakuza Kiwami is a remake of the first Yakuza game originally released back on the PS2 in 2005. Coming off of Yakuza 0, the game feels very lackluster, though it does improve upon some aspects such as the combat, allowing you to change fighting styles a lot more fluidly, such as at the end of a combo. The game does suffer a bit from being a faithful recreation of the first game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it gives people the chance to play it as close as it was to the initial release, though it does have some downsides such as encounters not being as fun as some of the other games when they now have like 6 under their belt, and also the cutscenes really keep that PS2 feeling.
少なくとも和樹さんはそうやってのし上がったんだ。てめえらヤクザに和樹さんの邪魔をさせねえ。だから俺はヤクザじゃねえって。人の話聞かねえやつだな。うるせえ！俺はこの店命がけで守るんだ！
But we're not here to ask whether or not this is a good game, no. We're here to find out just how hard it is to get every achievement in Yakuza Kiwami. I will mention before going on that there will be comparisons to Yakuza 0, not only because this game feels like an expansion on Yakuza 0 using the same engine, plays the same, looks the same, but also because you'll come to realize that a lot of things in completing these achievements will be very similar to Yakuza 0, and on top of that, we can now use that game as a baseline to determine whether things are harder or easier as well. So, yeah. There's not really much to say about these ones. There's 13 chapters and you get 1 achievement per chapter. There's also the Legend achievement for beating the game on Legend difficulty, however this time you can start with a New Game Plus save carrying over your items, money, levels, and abilities rather than starting from nothing. I also want to make one correction from my previous video. I said that to unlock Legend difficulty, you need to finish the game on hard, but that's not true. You just have to finish the game on any difficulty. I want to thank this user, D-Decken, for letting me know and said that this is true for Yakuza 0, Kiwami, and Kiwami 2. Some good news about this game is that there are no missable achievements, so you're not going to have to worry about missing an item, not performing enough heat attacks, or botching a QTE. I also think that it doesn't really help this section that the story isn't all too exciting, but I also can't blame them for that because this is like the first story they've ever written for the Yakuza series. The general gist of it is that Kiryu takes the blame for the murder of Sohei Dojima for his sworn brother Nishiki. Kiryu spends 10 years in prison and is also expelled from the Tojo clan. After he gets out of prison, he finds out there's a major internal conflict within the Tojo clan as 10 billion yen have now gone missing. Alongside the missing money, Kiryu's childhood friend and love interest, Yumi, has also gone missing. Over time, Kiryu finds a 9-year-old girl named Haruka who is looking for her mother Mizuki. Kiryu learns her mother is Yumi's sister and helps Haruka find her mother so he could also find the 10 billion yen and Yumi. That's mostly it. Also, Nishiki becomes this ruthless crime boss, and Kiwami has added cutscenes showing how Nishiki went from this to this.
10 years in the joint.
So I guess that's kinda cool. There's an achievement for completing 10 sub-stories, 30 sub-stories, and all 78 of them, which is a huge fucking jump. A few sub-stories also come with their own achievements, and they are The Price of an F-Cup, My Baby's a Showgirl, Bet on a Champ, Wife of a Yakuza, A Doctor's Duty, The Fake Mizuki's Truth, and Man on a Ledge. And why these? I don't know, I couldn't tell you. The Fake Mizuki's Truth and Wife of a Yakuza give a bit more story information, and A Doctor's Duty introduces a character who appears later in the series during the main plot, but I can't really tell you about the rest of them, so I don't know. If you know about that, then why don't you let me know? The last sub-story you'll do, after you complete 77 of them, is the Amon fight. And the Amon fight is meant to be the hardest fight in the game, and he is pretty challenging, but I managed to get him in like 3 attempts or so. By the time you get to this sub-story, you'll also have all your abilities, which I think is another requirement for unlocking the sub-story. So the main strategy is just to repeatedly tiger drop him. He has 2 phases, one where he's fighting with the Dragon of Dojima fighting style, and the second he's fighting with the Mad Dog of Shimano fighting style. The second phase does kind of suck because that dagger hurts a lot, so if he starts spinning, you're probably just gonna die. You'd think I'd have a bit more to say about this, but no, not really. I mean, the tiger drop really kind of just trivializes a lot of it, so if you get the timing right, then you can probably just do it in like 1 or 2 goes once you learn how things are. He does get faster the less health he has, so keep that in mind, but it's not really like that big of a fight. There are also 2 sub-stories added in Kiwami, one being a turn to Pocket Circuit Racing, and another being about an arcade game called Mesu King, which is based off of a SEGA game called Mushi King, the King of Beetles. Mesu King has a short series of sub-stories, and they involve these insect fights where the good insects fight the bad ones, and these insects are also scantily clad sexy women, and really is just the catfight minigame all over again. Mesu King, however, is slightly better than the Catfight Club because there's no goddamn button mashing, and for some cases, there's slightly less RNG. You can also customize your fighters so they have more abilities such as healing on command, or blocking an opponent attack, or not taking damage on a tie, things that really help you out and reduce the amount of RNG that's in this. You also end up finding these cards all around Kamurocho, so you just go pick them up, and I think it's just very similar to the telephone cards that you picked up in Yakuza 0 as well. It does feel very, very similar to that. I say that Mesu King is better than the Catfight Club, but the bar for that is so low that anything would be an improvement. These two minigames also have achievements tied to them, and while I could include this with the other minigames in the next section, they are linked to sub-stories, so I figured I'd put them here. I also say that the Pocket Circuit minigame is tied to a sub-story because to complete it, you need parts that you can only get from completing the racetracks. There are two sub-stories that are also added in Kiwami where you get to spend time with hostesses, where one does not want to fall in love with a client and the other's a lesbian. These are similar to the hostess training from the Cabaret Club minigame, but you don't have to sit through a 3-minute minigame every time. Raising their affection to S rank will get you an achievement. You also get an achievement for asking a hostess out on a date, and an additional one if that date is a game of Mahjong. The final thing I want to add is that there's one achievement that's tied to sub-stories, and that's learning every one of Kameki's moves, which is another short series of sub-stories that also get tied to the Coliseum fights. So far, these achievements just take time to get, but it's not even been that tedious. Sure, the sub-stories might not stand out as much, and a lot of them might just be really boring, kind of Kiryu gets scammed, he beats up the scammer, cycle repeats over and over again for like a few times. I remember there's like this one sub-story sequence where you're just walking down a street, you bump into them, you beat them up, they leave, you come back, you bump into them, you beat them up, they leave, and it just kind of repeats, I think like 3 times. I think there's like 3 of these. And then there's one where this one Yakuza guy tries to take you as his kind of like mentor figure, and then you tell him things to do, and then he gets scammed himself, and then you bust him out, and then this happens like 3 times as well. Yeah, very few sub-stories really stand out in this, and there's not really any that I particularly really enjoyed. Some of them were just kind of neat, but apart from that, it's just things that you just get done, and that's pretty much it. I don't know. It's not really been that difficult to get these achievements for the sub-stories. The completion list is back, and this will be the main thing to focus on again as you try to get every achievement. The good news, however, is that this list is far less grindy than Yakuza 0 since you're only playing as Kiryu. Yeah, you still have to beat 200 enemies in each fighting style, but I managed to do this as I was working on getting through every sub-story and picking fights early where it takes less time for a fight because I'll have less health. I also like Kiryu's fighting style a lot more, so this helped make things a lot easier for me. A lot of the metrics in this are also very similar to Yakuza 0, such as eating at restaurants, running around a set distance, saving people on the street, using a set amount of heat actions, and if you've gone through that list, then this will be very similar. There's actually not too much to talk about, but there are a few things that are different here. Minigames are also the same as Yakuza 0 with the exception of collecting Mesu King cards, but this is also similar to getting those telephone cards that I mentioned before. This does mean that you'd also have to play Mahjong again, so if you hated it back then you'll hate it here, and it also means that you have to go through all those fucking gambling games.
Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang.
One thing this game does have, however, are cheat items to help you win at these minigames. Granted, they won't always be able to finish the completion item, but they'll give you a good, decent start along the way to completing them. Some of them, such as Blackjack, will give you a Blackjack for 5 turns or cause the dealer to bust for 5 turns, which does make it easier to get the completion item done and reduces a lot of that fucking bullshit RNG. I hated Blackjack before, where the dealer just feels like they just constantly cheat. But for things such as poker, it only works for 1 cards. So, you know, you got some really good ones, and you got some ones that aren't really all that good. So it's like, I kind of wish they all were good so I can just be done with it, but One complaint I do have is that you have to win 50 Coliseum tournaments again, and you won't really know how frustrating some of the combat encounters really are until you start to grind these out. I was fine going through about 30 of them, you know, just like, it's 30 of them, big deal. But then you'd think, well, what's another 20 more? It's a lot. 20 more fights of these is a lot. Not only do you need to finish 50 tournaments, but you also need to collect 100 weapons and 70 gear items, and some of them are from the Coliseum, and there's no item crafting here, so if you want to get everything, then you're gonna have to do a lot more than 50 of them. It also doesn't help that there's no way to make money in this with a business minigame, so have fun grinding for money as well to try to buy the rest. The one saving grace here, and it's that if you plan on going into legend difficulty with a completed save, and I mean, come on, of course you're going to use one, the completion list carries over. So if you couldn't be fucked to grind out everything in one run, then you could finish it in legend difficulty. Substories, however, do get reset, but not the metric, so you'd have to complete them again, so it's probably better to just finish them in your first playthrough and then finish the rest on legend later. There is, however, one section to the completion list that's new, and that's going to get its own part right now. 10 years in the joint made Kiryu a fucking pussy. Haha, yeah, that's the line. That's the bit. That's what Nishiki says in the English dub. Yeah. After getting out of prison, Kiryu is weak as all hell, and it becomes very obvious when you have your required fight against Majima, which you will lose. He'll be pissed off that you've done nothing in prison but sit in your cell looking dead ahead, and will now begin to pester you around the city looking for fights to help you regain your strength so he can fight the actual Dragon of Dojima, and thus begins Majima Everywhere and the start of Majima's and Kiryu's will they won't they. Over time, you'll be getting texts from Nishida, who is Majima's right-hand man, and he'll tell you things like, oh yeah, Majima's gone bowling, so if you go bowling, you might see him, or there's this hot new hostess at the club, why not go check it out? And surprise, it's Goromi. Or you might walk around and Majima, who then sprints up and runs towards you, starting a fight, or maybe you'll be minding your own business and this guy just jump scares you from around the corner. Either way, you'll be leveling up your rank with Majima Everywhere and also unlock abilities for your Dragon of Dojima fighting style. Unless you actively avoid Majima and only hard focus on the main story, you'll be able to finish this before the end of the game, and chances are you'll be done with this before completing everything the completion list asks of you for this section, and that's okay because Majima never leaves. Majima's always there, he's always around, always watching, and he will show up when you least expect it. Please just leave me alone. On top of that, there are in total 12 achievements. 12. That is almost as much as the story achievements, and really, if you ask me, the worst part of this mode is that it overstays its welcome. The Majima fights ends up being very repetitive. He has 4 fighting styles, the same ones as in Zero, and nothing really changes between them apart from the fact he gets more health as time goes on. It's sort of like fighting Mr. Shakedown, where the first win means a lot, because not only are you getting massive gains in XP, but also new abilities, but over time it begins to feel more diluted. It's funny seeing Cop Majima for the first time and learning that he canonically owns the 24-hour Cinderella outfit. It stops being funny like 3 or 4 times in and starts to feel like a chore. The requirements to unlock the dragon abilities aren't too difficult, and you would be able to unlock most of them without even trying. It just takes a while, and I'm sure for a lot of Majima fans it's really exciting the first time around, but eventually it just becomes a bit of an annoyance when he just jumps at you like, come on bro, I'm just trying to get to the next objective. After you complete the main story, you unlock Premium Adventure, which is a free roam mode where you can go on to complete things you missed, such as Substories, Majima Everywhere, anything from the completion list you couldn't be fucked to do during the main game, or maybe you just want to find a way to play Mahjong because Final Fantasy XIV Mahjong queues won't pop. There are 2 achievements you can get only in Premium Adventure, and they both involve Haruka. One is walking around hand in hand with Haruka for 1 kilometer, which is very cute. I like this a lot. Kiryu gets to spend time with his new adopted daughter, and it's just a nice relaxing moment that may or may not be interrupted by Majima showing up. This takes about like 20 minutes or so of just walking around, so it's not really all that bad. The second achievement is to complete Haruka's requests and to raise that rank all the way to EX. These involve buying items for her, getting food with her, playing mini games, and most of them it's just pretty simple because you just run from place to place as you eat ramen, you buy her gifts, but sometimes she'll She'll ask you to go gamble and win a set amount in one sitting, and moments like these really begin to test your patience.
Let's go gambling!
Granted, you could do what I've done and save your cheat items for this part of the game to have an easier time, but for some games, they won't cut it, such as Baccarat, for example, which only gives you about like half of what you need or so if you use both the cheat items. The most frustrating parts of trying to get this achievement is a moment around the end where Haruka asks if you can play a game of pool and win against an expert. No, Haruka. No, I can't. Who the hell do you think I am? I'm not gonna win against an expert. Fuck off. On screen right now should be unedited footage of me getting my ass beat. It might be sped up, I don't know. I wrote this before I began editing. And if you miss one pocket against the expert AI, you could say goodbye to your whole game. I knew from this moment that I missed, I would either restart or hope that the AI misses. So I just put my controller down and began browsing Twitter, which is a punishment in and of itself. It got so frustrating trying to beat this guy. But one time when the AI itself missed, I managed to lock in and win. So yeah, fuck you, Yasuya Hiramoto, you piece of shit. The other frustrating part would be soon after, where Haruka wants to go and sing karaoke. And she only has one song, Auto Metal My Life, which is a really hard song to play, and you would have to score about 950 points to win. That's tough, but if you're playing on PC, you can select a hidden song with your mouse, and Haruka, I say, air quotes, would start singing Tonight, which will look weird with her sitting in front of the table and Kiryu's clipping into the couch, and the interjection sounds played during the song. Tonight is a far easier song, and it will still count, funny enough. I did end up going back to getting 950 points in Auto Metal My Life, just to show that, yeah, I could do it, but you'll also note at the end, Haruka getting 1,000 points in Tonight, which isn't possible. I will say that if I didn't get the 950 points in Auto Metal My Life, it'll just be the moment of like, man, I ain't showing that or telling that. Now I got my ass beat. So this section is a lot shorter than expected because, you know, what can I really say about this? I debated even putting this in here, but there is an achievement for it, and it's something that people might find challenging. I did find it easier than before, but I'm not really sure why. Maybe because Kiryu is just a lot easier to play, and the Tiger Drop really does carry you when you play a strong Kiryu. These felt a lot more manageable, and I don't really think I have much to add. There's still a challenge, such as the one where you fight through the Tojo clan at a low level, and the no-hit runs are a bit tough, but there's not really much else for me to comment on. So I'd probably want to say something along the lines of, getting every achievement made me appreciate this game more, but that's not really true. My opinion of this game remains the same, but what I can say is that getting every achievement in this game is not as long or as tedious as I expected. If you were to play at a more casual level and wanted to get things such as Majima Everywhere done, finish some sub-stories, and go through legend difficulty, then you'd have way more than half of the achievements. When I started working on this video, I had about 44 out of 55 achievements from just playing casually before. So really, I was just trying to get the last few, but it wasn't really all that bad, and even I started on a fresh save. I finished off with a save file of like 40 hours, and that is trying to complete the completion list in one save. So if I wanted to go into legend difficulty and complete the rest, then we could probably add like, what, another 10 hours or so if I was being generous. When Zero ended up with a 90-hour save, this looked a whole lot better. The next time we come back to these achievement hunts, we'll be looking at Yakuza Kiwami 2. And just, please, I don't want to play pool again. Hey everyone, I want to say thank you for watching. It's funny looking through this because this has just been very similar to like the last Yakuza game, so there's not that much really to add on here, and if I wanted to only talk about the things that were different, this would have been a lot shorter of a video. So I think, like, I don't know, maybe it just depends from like game to game. I do have fun making these, and I am considering making more of these achievement hunt videos, but I might do them in like other games, and I'm not sure when I'm going to do them, if I want to do them after I finish the Like a Dragon series or just whenever really. So I don't know, let me know below what you think, what you prefer, and I'll look into that when I have the time. The standard YouTube fare: if you did like this video, then leave a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. And because I will be going into Yakuza Kiwami 2 later, if you want to see that, consider subscribing so you'll know when that video goes up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time, and remember that I appreciate you.